Hey guys, Pat Reinholz here, and today I'm going to talk about intonation on the cello. Now, intonation is obviously a really deep subject, so I'm going to go ahead and call this part 1. I'm going to start out by comparing hearing and listening, because good intonation has more to do with your ear than your cello. On an instrument without frets, we have endless intonation possibilities, so being able to listen is extremely important. When you hear something, you are simply perceiving the sound. It is an effortless process and it is involuntary. Many people hear the sound of their instrument when they play. This is not always with good results. To truly listen, you need to be actively processing all of the sounds that enter your ear. It requires concentration and focus. The dictionary defines listen as to give one's attention to sound. When we think this way, we tend to be much more critical of the sounds we make, and it becomes much easier to perceive notes that are out of tune and to make changes. Speaking of listening, take a moment at the beginning of your practice session to just listen to an open string. Try your open D, for example. Play with a long bow and really let it ring and resonate. What do you hear? The easy hearing answer would be, well, the note D. This is only part of the sound that is being created. The note D is simply the fundamental tone. There is a whole series of overtones that are audible as well. You will need to, as I say, listen up. Listen for the higher notes in the overtone series. You can actually see some of these overtones in action. When you play a D on the C string, you will also be playing all of the overtones of that note, including the same pitches as your open D and your open A strings. So when you play that D and you look at your open D and your open A strings, you can see them sympathetically vibrating. It's a pretty cool phenomenon and a way to actually tell if you're playing that D in tune. So I'm going to show you how to play two intervals in tune, the perfect octave and the perfect unison. These are essential ones to get right away because all of the other ones are going to be much more difficult to tune if you can't get the octave and the unison in tune. So what is an octave anyway? An octave is a series of 8 diatonic notes where the highest note has twice the frequency of the first note. This is why our music alphabet repeats itself. A equals 440, but A also equals 220 and 110, 55, 880. All of these notes will sound like an A. The frequency is the number of vibrations per second. So when I say A440, that means that A is going back and forth 440 times per second. The octave below that is going back and forth 220 times per second. Octave below that, 110 times. Octave below that, 55, etc. So an octave higher means that the higher note is vibrating twice as fast as the one below it, or a 2-to-1 ratio. Let's start by tuning the easiest octave. Play an open string and then follow that by playing the halfway harmonic on the same string. Go back and forth a couple of times to acclimate your ear to this octave. Repeat this on all of your strings, D, G, and C as well. Make sure you're actively listening to the relationship between the low note and the high note, the octave up. The next step is to play an open string and then the fourth finger in first position on the next string up. You can do this in the D, G, and C strings. This should be done melodically, where the notes are separate, and harmonically, where you play the notes at the same time, or a double stop. You can change your finger on the upper note for a little variety as well. 2, 3, and 1. Really listen as you do this. Make sure your ear and your mind are happy with the sounds that you're making. If you're off by even a little bit, you're going to start to hear nasty noises. The next step is to tune the first finger on the G and C strings to the open A and to the open D strings. Once your ear is starting to feel accustomed to this interval, you can start to mix things up. You can play almost any note in first position on the lower strings, and then play the octave up still in first position on the higher strings. can shift for octaves. You can play scales in octaves. What is a unison? A unison is the exact same note. These are very easy to hear. Does it sound the exact same or not? We're going to practice playing the exact same note on different strings. Start by playing an open A, then try to match that pitch exactly by playing first finger in the 4th position on the D string. Do this melodically as well as harmonically. When you do this harmonically, listen for beats or pulses in the sound. If you hear these, you are close to playing in tune, but not quite there. Move your finger until these pulses get slower and then go away. Repeat this with each finger on each string. Once you can tune to open strings, then you can start to move around the instrument. For instance, play your first finger on the A string for B, and then match it melodically to the B that is found with the 3rd finger in the 4th position on the D string. Find more unisons on the instrument. The more you do this, the more you'll discover patterns and relationships between these notes. Change up what you do from time to time to keep your ear involved, to stay listening and not falling into hearing. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe to my channel. We'll see you next time. More levels, more levels. This way, this way, this way. More levels. Is that too many levels? That might be too many levels. Let's take the levels down a little bit. Let's go right there. Okay, sounds good.